Are you an exercise coach or on your own wellness journey? You're in the right place. 7 Movements presents. Welcome to the Ask Sinners Show with your hosts, Dan Tatton and John Sinclair.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Ask Sinners Show. So, John, today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We got a question the other day that kind of came out of the occupational health and safety realm, and how it relates to our Take 7 program. So maybe we'll start out with the real broad question is the Take 7 program applicable to that space, that occupational health and safety space?
Absolutely it is. In fact, my sister works in occupational health and safety for the Alberta Health. So it absolutely is. I think one of the things that has happened over many, many years is that there is a certain way of doing something, and then that becomes like the safety program that we would do. So if, for example, you're a union laborer and they've instructed you on safety and how to lift and how to prepare before, the challenge to that type of programming is it's making a massive assumption of what everybody needs at any given time prior to work or during work or after work, right? And so what's missing in some of our occupational health and safety programs is that ability for that one person to self-select what they need, to be autonomous, to be able to go, you know what? Geez, my lower back isn't feeling so good. What could I do to be able to work on my lower back? Versus the person that's working beside them that says, oh, I've got such a headache. What could I do to improve this? So immediately what we've done with how we've created the different categories is that will immediately allow some autonomous stuff that needs to happen in those safety programs. But really the movements that we've selected are around creating mobility in the big 3 key areas of the body that are often hampered from our repetitive type of movements that we do every day, like even in our jobs. So that would be the foot and the ankle, the hip and the pelvis, and the middle of the back or the thoracic spine. So when we create better mobility there, the body will instantaneously have better stability and better tensile strength. And so when they need to move a box or be in a truck for a long period of time or have to move in what we call odd positions where they got to really reach really, really far and pick something off of a big shelf, we're already setting the body up for success that way. So without really folks knowing a lot about biomechanics and human anatomy and physiology and those things, they're all baked into that program. So the cool part is they can self-select, which is the most important part right off the bat. And then they have the opportunity to go, okay, this is what I'm going to do for 7 minutes as a prep before my work, or after a long drive and I get out of the truck, I could throw something on and then away I go and carry on with the rest of my day. So I think the way we've set it up allows for not only that individuality, but also for the ability to people to be a little more autonomous and take kind of be a little bit more empowered with what their personal requirements are going to be for health and safety.
Right. And how would you recommend they from a safety standpoint, we have these things called safe work procedures, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a certain task that might have a certain negative outcome for the person performing that task, we build safe work procedures around that to make sure they don't get hurt. But what we're running into is in certain places, say like an office setting where you have people sitting all day long, we know there's a long-term effect. That person is going to get hurt over the long term if that's going to be the position that they're in all day. But there's no like acute injury, right? I don't just kind of sit at my computer like this and all of a sudden like, oh, my shoulder's dislocated. So how do we get this through to people who are going to be affected in the long term? I think driving's a similar type thing, right?
Yeah.
If you're driving and sitting in that position, going over bumps and all that kind of stuff day after day after day, there's going to be chronic conditions as a result of that. So how can Take 7 work as kind of a safe work procedure to help eliminate that long-term effect?
Yeah, and I think what we wouldn't do is, as one of my mentors used to say, never throw the baby out with the bathwater. right? So the baby being those safe work procedures are important, and they are crucial to the success of not only the safety of the company and the long-term viability of that worker to be able to continue and not be off work as a result of getting in pain. So what we would say is we have to continue that, but at the same time also introduce more unique strategies for that person. And the reason for that is that that one safety procedure might be applicable in a certain scenario, but like you said, that's to unload the truck, but what is the procedure for sitting in a truck for a long period of time? And the reality is we don't really have standards that I'm aware of, maybe you might be aware of, but of how do I combat stagnation over a long period of time, right? And there,
Here are the ergonomics, but that's setting up your desk so you can sit there uh, in a proper posture, but you're
sure,
still sitting there. It's not solving the issue of stagnation.
correct. And so what we have to do is we have to be disruptive enough, because that's what we're trying to do, right? Is be disruptive enough to say that, guys, the enemy of biology is rigidity. And by being more stagnant, you're creating more rigidity in the cellular structures, period. So going right down to the microscopic level, we are creating rigid people. And so our goal is now we got to get them up and we got to get them moving. And we got to do that as frequently as we can so that these long-term things don't happen. And study after study is starting to purport that exactly what we're saying is that when we sit for long periods of time, we see a massive increase in not only in productivity decreasing, but we also see a huge decrease in man days lost, if you will. So people not being able to be at work, seeing cost of employee benefits have to go through the roof because more people are having to take out insurance and go spend time with acupuncturists and chiropractors and all those amazing people that are part of our social or health social structure to help us feel better. When really there should be a personal responsibility on each worker to make sure that they're preparing themselves for the rigors of the occupation that they're in. And so I think there's a responsibility that's incumbent on the company as well as the individual, both to come together and go, you know what? We need to reward you with 7 to 10 minutes of activity every hour because we know in the long term that's going to allow us to be very successful. We'll be able to keep you here at work. In fact, wouldn't that be great as if your workday actually shrunk because you're more productive, right? Because we're taking a proactive approach at preventing some of these health and safety issues right out of the gate.
Right, right. So maybe real quick, go through how, from our perspective, from Seven Movements perspective, if we get approached by someone, say it's a company that has a lot of drivers, what's our process as far as developing a module for drivers that would help them through this process?
Right. So I try to keep it the exact same procedure that would happen if I was meeting an athlete for the very first time. And that would be, tell me what you need. If you can tell me what you need and how you've been successful and where you think you have not been successful, then I can be able to create a strategy for you. So for example, if a truck driving company approaches us and says, you know what, we're really concerned about the long-term safety and health and wellness of our drivers because they're spending this much time in a truck. Their job is to get from point A to point B in as shortest time as they can, offload, pick something else, and come on back home, right? And the challenge to that is that because they are, I don't know if they're compensated in that way, but because that is their job description, so to speak, this is what they need to do. I personally don't know enough about truck driving to know what is required in that. So the first thing we have to do is this kind of a discovery for the company. And that's what we do with all these solutions is if someone comes up to us and says, hey, could this work for us? We'd say, absolutely it can, but you got to give us more information because we can customize these solutions for you. We can create a truck driving 7-minute program. We can create how do I prepare for the military when they need to go on a 40-mile hike with 100 pounds of gear? How do I prepare the body to be able to do that in a short amount of time, knowing that when I need to take a quick rest and get some fuel in, how do I decompress the spine as a result of it, right? And so there's lots of things that we can customize. We just need to know what are those things that you need, and then we will build those strategies for you.
Right. Great. Maybe kind of the last add-on to this occupational health and safety question is, from your perspective, would it make sense for basically these 7-minute micro workouts to become part of someone's job? Because that's what safe work procedures are. It's part of your job. You have to do it. It's not, this would be nice to do. No, it's part of the safety program and a part of you working safely. Do you see that as something that would be valuable?
Well, if it was only about safety, then it would be about that acute thing, right? But if we're attaching health and safety on it, then I think it's incumbent upon every company, and I'm going to say it selfishly because we run this company and we want everyone to use it, but it would be incumbent on them to think about the preventative long-term health and success of their employees. It's going to cost way more money to have to bring in a new person to retrain them when the previous person can't work for you anymore because they're broken down. So it's like how we try to think about retaining clients. We want to retain an employee because it's far less costly to have to bring in a new person in. So I would think it's a wise investment to start thinking about their long-term preventative or the long-term health by preventing some of the stuff right away and making it part of their job to get up every hour and move and do something that you can self-select and target as to what you need today. Instead of let's just all get up and move around and do this. And for Joe, that's doing nothing for them. With Sally, it's awesome. But Joe now sits back down and goes, well, my problem was my hip. And we just spent all this time doing stuff with my back. Right? And so that's where I think the value in self-selecting this is, because that also is helping create behavior change. So if they start to get up, and most of the people that we've talked to, if not all of them, said when I do the mobility one for the hips, I immediately feel better and there's less stress on my back. Perfect. So if you get that reward in 7-minute time, that's as good as taking that one pill and waiting 4 hours for it to come in, because or to make you feel better and numb this stuff, because that's what it does. It doesn't solve any problems. It just numbs the pain sensors. So now I have the ability to get up, move around, and my employer wants me to do that. I get the reward. I get the opportunity to do what I do best every day, which is share their passion or get to do their work in a way that they feel autonomous to be able to do it and feel better, so that when they get out of work, the most important part of their day is probably not necessarily being at work. It's probably with their family and their loved ones and doing things that they love doing, right? And they'll have the capacity to do that. I know some people that I see, they get out of work and then they have to come and see me to get treated so that they can feel better. So they just go back into work all the time. Would it be better if they got to spend time with their family instead of coming to see me? Like I'm a barrel of monkeys of fun, but spend time with your family. Don't spend time with me.
That's right. Yeah. No, and you know what? That's a great perspective with the reward piece. I was just speaking with someone up who works up north in northern Alberta with in the oil fields, and they do stretches and stuff before they go out. It's part of their safety program. They do. He kind of made fun of them, but they were all kind of these standard, basic kind of stretches that you would guess that they were. And he said, yeah, nobody takes them seriously because no one gets any reward out of it. It's not applicable to them. Whereas he said, if I had a headache that morning and I could do something that would help my headache that morning, he'd be all over that. That'd be the best 7 minutes he spent all day getting rid of his headache before he starts a shift up there. Because that'd be awful working with a headache or even any sort of pain up there, because that's tough, rugged work. So, anyways, John, question of the day, episode 6. What do you got for us?
Can you hear me now? Sorry, my things are dying. Question of the day. Would you choose a beach vacation? And if so, where would that beach vacation be? Or would you like to choose like a ski vacation? And where in the world would you like to go ski?
Thanks so much for listening to 7 Movements Presents The Ask Sitter Show with your hosts, Dan Tatton and John Sinclair. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit 7movements.com and on Twitter and Facebook at 7Movements. We'll catch you next time on The Ask Sitter Show.